We have a massive update on Bobby Lashley potentially joining AEW as his WWE contract is set to expire. We're going to talk about the facts, what's next potentially for the former WWE champion, and why he could be all elite sometime very soon. We're also going to be giving an update on Kenny Omega's status. Is he healthy enough to compete and come back? We're going to talk about that. And, of course, we're going to talk all-in ticket sales, Wembley Stadium. The show is just a couple of weeks away. What are the numbers for AEW's biggest show of the year? How do they compare to last year? And what should we think about the turnout? All that and much more coming up right here in this video, so be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. All right, let's talk about Bobby Lashley. Now, recently it came out that Lashley and MVP were set to depart the company. MVP, we've already seen him show up in GCW at Bloodsport, and the question is, what was next for Bobby Lashley? Well, we're learning, according to a brand new report from FightfulSelect.com, that Bobby Lashley's WWE contract is indeed expiring this week. And in addition, here is an excerpt from that report that gives additional detail about potentially joining AEW. Here it is, the FightfulSelect.com excerpt. Bobby Lashley has been discussed backstage in AEW, but no offer has been made as he's still under WWE contract. Those close to Lashley believe he will at least make an appearance in AEW. There's also interest in Lashley in the fighting world and Japan. So, needless to say, the possibilities for the former WWE champion are endless. And Bobby Lashley is 47, 48 years old. You would not know it by looking at him. The man looks the same as he did nearly 20 years ago, which is scary in so many aspects. But he is a brick house. He is a huge star in the wrestling world. There's no doubt about it. And when you look at AEW and kind of where they're at, right, and it makes sense for a guy like Bobby Lashley to come in. And like, let me break it down for you from both a business standpoint and also like a genuinely like an appearance and PR standpoint. So from a business standpoint, right, you're AEW, you want to sign the best talent, you want to maximize the potential for people to see your product, and you want to bring in, you know, fresh faces, and that has to be part of the game for them as the competitor. And Bobby Lashley, I think there's some great storytelling potential for him in AEW. There's the idea of him potentially joining up with Shelton Benjamin, which of course has not been reported, but it would be a bit of a no-brainer. It's kind of been speculated that they want to have some sort of Hurt Business reunion with MVP as well. And I think the presentation there could be epic. And it could offer something that they didn't have in WWE, at least in the last year or 2 years of Bobby Lashley's time in that company. And that is meaningful television time. Bobby Lashley, like the last big thing that he did was win the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal and then come out the next night at WrestleMania, hold the trophy, and that was it. Outside of that, he's been used very sparingly. He has not had a presence on TV. And I think like what we're hearing from a lot of AEW situations and why some people are choosing potentially to go to WWE, I think a lot of it comes down to something I've talked about a lot, and that is sometimes just time to leave the territory because you've done all that you can somewhere, and now it's time to go see what else is out there. What are the stories that you can tell? What are the matches you could have? How can I make this character, whatever, whoever it is, interesting? And I think that's the next kind of step for Bobby Lashley, MVP, etc. So I think it makes sense in that respect for him to go to AEW. I think it would be a big story for sure. Like a former WWE champion, another former WWE champion in the last calendar year alongside Adam Copeland and is joining the company. That is big. You can say that, oh, it won't affect business or whatever. That's more t-shirt sales. That is more merch sales. That is a big PR win as well, as I talked about earlier, for AEW, because the perception right now is that people want out in AEW, right? Like from a strictly like the way people are talking about it, people are perceiving it. Perception is you're losing the Lucha Bros. The perception is, whether it's true or not, the Motor City Machine Gun chose WWE over AEW. The perception is Ricky Starks, whenever his contract is up, he's going to leave and go to WWE. The perception has been that these stars are leaving AEW, Andrade, Malachi Black potentially. Like, they're leaving All Elite Wrestling and they want to go to WWE because WWE right now is the place to be. Much like how 2-3 years ago, AEW was the place to be. And I've talked about this being like a pendulum a few times. I think WWE at this point is trying to create a situation where they're so big that there is no pendulum, and they are getting very successful at that. But we're still going to see talent who, I'm not going to say fall out of favor, but talent who have nothing else to do and eventually will, I think, go to AEW. A name that you guys should probably have on your radar is Kevin Owens. I think odds are he still ends up re-signing whenever his deal is up. I think it's reported that it's 2025 at some point. But Kevin Owens is a guy who has accomplished everything there is to accomplish in WWE. You could argue that WWE would not let him go. I think they would do everything in their power to try to keep him because he's a main eventer. He's main event of WrestleMania twice. He is former world champion, all the accolades. But at the same time, what is there to do in WWE for him as a character? What is there to do, as other than being a sidekick, which is essentially what Kevin Owens is at this point. He's a sidekick to Cody Rhodes. And it's kind of what he's grown into, unfortunately, there. And people can talk about, well, at the end of the day, money's all that matters, all that kind of stuff. And while that is true, we don't know what the motivations are. And Kevin Owens, at that point in his career, he's made a lot of money. I think the money to AEW is going to be the same, whether or not comparable. And there's just going to be, more to do and more interesting stuff to do. And again, that's me just kind of talking, shooting from the hip a little bit, but I definitely think that Kevin Owens is a name to keep an eye on in this war. But Bobby Lashley to AEW would be interesting. There's a lot you could do there. We'll see if it ends up happening, but let me know in the comments how you guys feel about that. Do you even want to see the former world champion Bobby Lashley in All Elite Wrestling? Let me know in the comments. Be sure to hit that like button and all that jazz. As we move on to our next topic, let's talk about one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. Let's talk about Kenny, by God, Omega, as Don Callis like to say. So Kenny Omega has been sidelined for a while with a bout of diverticulitis. He has not wrestled ever since December of last year. He has one appearance on AEW TV since last winter, and that was when he came back and got attacked by the New Elite. And the question has been, well, we know Kenny said that he would be back. We know that Kenny has indicated that, and people have said, like, the expectation is at some point, we don't know when, but he will be back. But then, like, the when question does arise. Well, Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter said the following about this situation, quote, "I don't even know if there is a date on when Kenny Omega will return. He's getting better. I know that. He's been in the gym. I looked up the surgery he had," and this is where Dave is kind of, okay, I'm Googling, Dr. Dave Meltzer. "I looked up the surgery he had. Usually for a wrestler, it's about a 4-month recovery, so a lot of wrestlers push it and probably come back quicker. So that would be by mid-September, but he didn't just have the hernia problem. He had a lot of different problems, but like I said, he is coming back. That's pretty much the word. I don't think it's like months and months away. I don't want to say this because I feel stupid saying it because he has not told me anything in this regard, but just the vibe I have is that it'll be before the end of the year. And again, to reiterate, Kenny Omega dealing with a very serious medical condition that could have cost him his life, according to many reports at the time, that if he did not go to the hospital when he did, that the results could have been catastrophic. And we're all very happy that that was not the case and Kenny got the care that he needed. Diverticulitis is no joke. Brock Lesnar had that disease. It is like ravages your intestines. But it is good that Kenny was able to get help when he did. Now, as far as Kenny's return, this has been something that has been talked about, speculated for a while. Many people believe that All In was a potential date for this return. They want to see this match between Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada. Now, of course, I think there's that desire, but then there needs to be the realistic, expectations put on it. Because while Kenny Omega versus Kazuchika Okada in North America is going to be a huge, huge, huge affair, the reality is that you don't do it unless Kenny Omega is 100%. And if I'm Tony Khan, understand the idea of needing Kenny Omega back. Very, very solid and understandable. But you want to make sure that when Kenny comes back, he is healthy. And he's not just, 90% good to go, 80% good to go. He's 100% good to go. Because we have seen over the past few years, Kenny Omega deal with extended periods of time off. It has not only impacted the way that his stories are told and the energy and excitement around his stuff, it has interrupted the show. And, I've talked about this before, like the Elite not being on TV for months on end, CM Punk not being on TV for months on end, like all the kind of stuff, like the interruptions of your biggest stars being on TV, it has hurt AEW. So in my view, when Kenny does come back, you got to make sure that he's good to go. And I think use him wisely. Doesn't mean you can't have him wrestle a few times, like in between pay-per-views, but use him wisely. Because this is someone who has a lot of mileage on his body. Like, let's be real. I've seen those Kenny Omega matches from New Japan. Dude was kicking the living crap out of people, and they were doing the same back to him. So whatever happens, we need to make sure that, Kenny's health is prioritized. And I think they will do that. That's the indication that, we've always gotten from AEW. But we'll see. The other thing, is like Kenny, it's good to hear that he's like working out, he's in the gym and all that kind of stuff. It means that he is working towards that like recovery. Again, I would not expect to see him at All In. The one little whatever, and again, speculation part now. The one little thing in my brain that can't escape me is like the original plan seemed to be for All In for Hangman Page and Kazuchika Okada. That seemed to be what they were hinting towards. And that suddenly kind of shifted to potentially Jeff Jarrett and Hangman Page. And again, this is just based off of like the kayfabe fight that happened backstage between the two. If that is the case, then it kind of, makes people wonder, like, well, what's Okada doing then? He has to be doing something big. Is it Kenny? Is it Kenny Okada at Wembley? And, like, we don't know. And, like, would that help ticket sales, which we'll talk about in just a second? Potentially. But, again, I think Kenny's health is what you got to factor in. If he's good to go and he's 100%, then that's a whole different thing. But if it's even an inkling that he's not, I do not want to see Kenny Omega out there. If he is not. So we'll see what happens there, guys. Let me know in the comments section who you would want to see Kenny Omega wrestle outside of Okada. That is the big one. We also know that Kota Ibushi is not exactly done with AEW. He said that he is coming back to the company, but he's only coming back when his Golden Lover teammate Kenny Omega does, which can't wait to see a good run with the Golden Lovers. Forget the Jericho and Omega stuff. I hated that stuff so much. Anyway, guys, let's move on to our final topic and talk AEW All-In ticket sales. As we know, over 81,000 people attended All-In last year. The question was, how are they going to shape up and compare this year running the same stadium, the same weekend? And, well, we got we're getting, I should say, a bit of an answer. Here is the latest count according to WrestleTix. Guys, I highly recommend you go follow WrestleTix. They are the best account for keeping up with attendance and all that kind of stuff. They have really got this figured out. So AEW All-In Wembley Stadium, available tickets, 6,156. The current capacity for their setup right now is 51,314. And tickets distributed now are 45,158. So they've been kind of around that 40,000 number for a while. That was kind of like, they were like, no matter what, they were going to sell 40,000 tickets to this event, it seems. And ever since they announced matches, that number has gone up. And we've basically seen, ever since the main events, the Owen Hart Cup happened, we've seen about a jump of 5,000 in total. Obviously, this is not close to where they were last year, but I want everyone to kind of temper their fervor about this and kind of understand what this means. A company that is not WWE selling potentially by the end of it maybe 50,000 tickets in a stadium, that is still an insane amount of tickets to be sold. It is by far AEW's most successful show of the year, will be AEW's most successful show of the year. Whoops. But so like, again, we want to compare to WWE, all that kind of stuff, and there's a time and place to do that. But at the same time, where AEW is in their business, selling 50,000 almost tickets to the show, that would be impressive. And if we can pull that up again, like look at the way the stage is set up. It is different than where it was last year, because remember last year they kind of had everything coming from the other sideline of the field. But this time, because of Taylor Swift apparently being in town and the concert happening really close to that point, AEW kind of had to change around the design. So instead, it's going to be a longer type of walk to the arena or to the ring, excuse me. And they're going to cut off some seats. There's going to be some seats cut off there. So it kind of, cuts the total capacity of what's possible down anyway. So all in all, I mean, like if they are able to have like a big like screen or whatever, a big set, that is going to help make this look a lot better. And look, 50,000 tickets is basically like right around the number that WWE has sold for events like SummerSlam in the past and WrestleMania as well. Like there have been a few WrestleManias just over the past decade that have sold like 50,000 tickets. So, or 50 to 55,000 tickets. So again, it is just one of those things that it is still a good number. Like it is not going to be, you're never going to do 81,000 again in Wembley Stadium back-to-back years. You're not going to do that. AEW could be the hottest product in the world. The reason that show sold out 81,000 tickets distributed now, I know people are going to 71,000 turns. I'm talking about tickets distributed. They sold 81,000 tickets. That is true. Whether 10,000 of those people didn't show up or whatever, or it was like the AEW made that money. But the fact that 81,000 tickets were sold last year did not happen because just AEW. I think obviously AEW was a big draw in that, but this was the first show at Wembley Stadium in nearly 30 years at that point. And in Europe, in the UK, that is a big deal. They brought it back. They brought wrestling in stadiums back. And obviously now it's kickstarted WWE's attempt to do that. And I think WWE, they want to go after that 81,000 record. They're never going to acknowledge it, but they want that record. They want that record because they know it to be true. Again, I'm not going to get into the discourse. Y'all, everyone's going to go, and they sold 93,000 sold out for the Silver Dome, brother. And 101,000 was crazy for Dallas. I can't believe people actually believe that. Anyway, guys, let me know what you guys think, though. Is All In looking good? I'm going to All In, by the way. I'm really hyped for it. It's going to be my first show at Wembley Stadium, first event ever at Wembley Stadium. Super, super, super hyped. I can say that I will have been at WrestleMania in Philly and All In London in the same year. So that's a big, big thing for me. This has been the year of wrestling. I'm going to a hell of a lot of wrestling shows. Also going to be a Bad Blood in Atlanta. I'm going to be probably at All Out in Chicago. Going to be so many. Wrestle Dream, I will be there. So many wrestling shows this year. Hopefully my bank account does not hate me entirely because of it. But guys, if you want to support me going to these wrestling shows, the best way to do that is by leaving a thumbs up, because that means more people see this video, gets into the algorithm, helps the channel grow, and also helps build the community, the Real Take community that I'm building here. Also, if you haven't already done so, be sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. And until next time, be happy, be healthy, and as always, keep it real.